Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio, radio, no pictures live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the debate or discussion or call it what you like about do illegal or mass migrants and illegal migrants to the West, do they receive welfare? And how much welfare do they receive, and what's it related to, and what sort of civic responsibilities do they have in order to receive this welfare, and so on. Now, there was been a few recent debates across Europe and elsewhere where the claim is that large numbers of these, whether they be illegal or refugees, or call them what you like, are receiving a very generous and a disproportionate amount of welfare. And the fact checkers, who are all globalist controlled propagandists, by the way, so you have to take it with a pinch of salt, insist that, well, there's they don't get any more welfare than any other group of people in the local citizens get just the same amount. There's no difference. It's equal. So it's all equal amounts of welfare. And as soon as you hear words like equal, then you know that it's lies. You don't need to delve any deeper than that. Just the ideology around the talking points is enough to tell you that it's just a pack of lies. Nonetheless, let's have a look at it, because by very selective use of statistics and categories and definitions, they can actually make the claim. So let's suppose we're looking at it could be anything, I don't know, speeding. If we define speeding as doing 5 million kilometers an hour, then we can say there is zero speeding, because our definition is 5 million kilometers an hour must be before you classify it as speeding. Therefore, nobody is speeding. Let's suppose we say speeding is anyone who's traveling over 1 inch a century. Then we can say that everybody is speeding, because that's the definition. So we need to be very careful with how these propagandists, the so-called fact checkers, define. Now, so they use a number of categories. They can say that they're refugee applicants. Then they can say that because they've been processed into a different category that they're refugees. Then they can be temporary asylum. So when you look at all these different categories that they have and classifications they use, say, well, if you're a refugee, any government handouts and benefits you get isn't classified as welfare; it's classified as temporary assistance. So if somebody says, well, look at all the welfare these people get, no, they don't get any. They don't get any. Well, what do you mean they don't get? No, they don't get any. Because what they're receiving is temporary assistance, and that's not the same as welfare, but it is the same as welfare. It doesn't matter. We define it differently. So therefore, it is not welfare because we call it temporary assistance. So in another category of refugee or subcategory of refugee, then it's referred to as interim financial support. Therefore, it's still not welfare, and so on. So by using all these different categories and definitions and sub-definitions of subcategories, they can actually deny that they're giving welfare. Now, we're supposed to believe that illiterate peasants from the third world with no skills, no education, they're illiterate in their own language, are somehow all arriving and getting jobs as scientists and engineers and doctors. This, of course, is quite absurd. And why they would attempt to push those lies on us is quite beyond me. But if they've got enough control of the narrative, they can make people believe the lies. But a policy note said, well, 45% of refugees, 45% of the mass migrants, be they legal or otherwise, or refugees, or the mass movement of people into the West, 45% of them are still on welfare 10 years or 20 years, I think it was, down the track. Lies, the fact checkers say. No, that's not true. So when they go through the various, for example, if you have a family, say family from Africa, and they've got 10 children, and they get given government housing and so on, that's a separate category. That's people in urgent need. And so that's not welfare because they have to have it, otherwise they perish and da, da, da. So again, they classify that as something different. and under different subgroups and categories. So they can argue that welfare is not being paid when in fact it is. Now, if you look at the situation, say in Australia, there are people who are here for 25 years and they still can't speak. They can barely speak a word of English, and they're almost 100% dependent on welfare for accommodation and food and everything. And there's a lot of them, by the way, a lot of them. They don't go to English language classes, make no effort to integrate or assimilate or learn the language, and they're still being 100% supported by the taxpayer. Now, the difference is that the ideological assumption underlying this is people in need. So you say, well, they have a need. You can't speak English, you're illiterate, you've got no skills, so we have to give you welfare because you are a person in need, a human need, a human right. Whereas the local person who's, the local citizen that does speak, they're not in need because they can't speak English and they've got some sort of qualifications or credentials and so on. But the issue here is that what a lot of people are talking about with mass migration is there is no civic responsibilities required in return. So we give you free house, free food, free phone, free everything, but you have no civic responsibilities or the responsibilities in return to the civis in order to justify this. We just classify you as a person in need, therefore you get all these benefits. But you come to the country illegally and say, hey, I've arrived illegally, I'm a person in need. So they're only classified as a refugee. That then opens the door to endless entitlements. Now, if you look at, say, in the case of, all over the West, you could look, whether it's in Britain or the United States or anywhere, say in New York, where they've taken over whole schools and public buildings of all sorts, and they're putting people in there, the so-called refugees or illegals, and they're being stirred up and agitated by far left activists to demand more and more. But they get free shelter, free bedding and linen, free clothing, free food, mobile phone, money. They get a free pass to use the public transport system. If they have children, they can go to school, they can go to medical emergency centres to get free medical treatment. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Yet a lot of these people, literate peasants though they may be, they still demand, they still think, hey, this is a raw deal, and demand more. Well, why can't we have a $500 a night hotel room in downtown, in the downtown area? They demand all sorts of things, thinking they have a right to, and they're encouraged in doing that by the NGO activists and all sorts of people who are riding this ridiculous freight train that's leading us all to disaster. But the fact checkers just how they jump onto it. No, these people aren't getting welfare when they are. But really, the point of this video is to explain that because of the various categories, are you a refugee? Are you receiving temporary asylum? Are you in an asylum program? And all this sort of thing, so they can say that all the benefits these people receive, very substantial amounts of it, by the way, are free of welfare. Similarly, if you've handicapped children, they refer to that as a family in need, which they don't classify as welfare. It's directly going to the needs of the children, the little girls dressed in pink and all that sort of stuff. So that's not welfare in terms of the definition that they use. So they can claim, no, these people don't get welfare, when in fact they do. They're receiving vast amounts, gazillions of dollars of welfare. Other things that sort of struck me as odd, when these people get free bus tickets or plane rides, say in the United States as an example, they come in the southern border, they're giving free bus tickets and plane rides and they're distributed all over the United States. Who pays for that? Well, the taxpayers pay. But do they classify that as welfare? No, they classify it as transport support, or a community reunion because they've got a 10th cousin living somewhere. And these, so they, again, by using all these different definitions and so on, they can deny welfare is being given, when in fact, gazillions upon gazillions of dollars of welfare is being handed out under various names, guises, programs, and subterfuge. And so their attempts to deny it are totally disingenuous. But because they control the fact-checking machine as well as the narrative machine, they're able to some extent at least get away with it. Being a Tassus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.